A lot of mech anime started out designed to sell toys. This is known, this is not a controversial stance, and for a long time that worked well enough. After all, when a mech design is particularly stellar, it can bring an otherwise run-of-the-mill show up to the limelight. Even if a show is kind of whatever story-wise, if you hit the mark with a lead design, then you can recoup a lot of the costs with good toy sales and the ever-important optics. This can lead to series living perhaps well beyond their expiration date for whatever reason that may be. And that's how we get the Kunio Okawaras and the Masame Obaris of the anime world, mechanical designers who can be relied upon to produce mecha that can hold attention. So why have we had such a complete failure in the Western end to do the same? What is it about mecha that seems to elude American and European designers so badly? Well, I'm going to try and shed some light on this situation and take a look at some of the times that good mech designs are simply a bridge too far for Western designers. Now, it's worth noting that there are good Western mech designs out there, but the ones that are the big winners usually wear their design inspirations on their sleeves. Obviously, the Jaegers from Pacific Rim are heavily inspired by the super robots of the 70s. The Voltron reboot, cribbing from the original design, didn't change the design nearly at all because they knew they had something good on their hands and just reworked it. There are dozens of board games that are mech focused, but they're all emulating the style set down by mech anime that came before it. It's not like we don't have a long history of heavily armored knights to draw from, inspiration-wise, or stylish angular muscle cars from the 60s and 70s, and yet, here we are. I have a few theories on why this is an issue, but let's talk about a couple of brilliantly awful examples of Western mecha that just didn't land. Let's look first at the AMP and the APU suits from Avatar and the Matrix. These are some of the least unpalatable mechs on the list because for all their enormous flaws, there at least is a little bit of thought put into them. The APU weapon systems have clear reloading mechanisms. They're very utilitarian and look like they've been reassembled from what they've got on hand. Same with the Prawn exosuit in District 9. Not terrible, but they're also conveying world building with their designs. I think the AMP suit is also conveying some world building with its design, but it's more like James Cameron remembered how cool people thought the power loader was and basically just strapped a gun on it. That's the biggest issue with these two designs, though. They're trying to mimic the power loader from Aliens. The power loader was a piece of industrial equipment that got used as a weapon in a crisis, not something that's supposed to be in combat. So when you take the open cockpit layout and have a squishy human protected by nothing more than glass at best, the design looks flimsy and fragile. At least when 40K did something similar, their pilot is a superhuman wearing 6 inches of power armor on all sides. Now you can contrast this with the Marauder suits from Starship Troopers, which in their various iterations across a few different media are fully enclosed and look intimidating. Maybe they're not the most visually stimulating, but they're good enough for government work. Tish. Consider also that these are military weapons. Military weapons in the United States are always very much front and center, and they are always somewhat boring to look at. They took a little bit too much from the idea of a walking tank. In a lot of these cases, that is the biggest problem. But speaking of Space Marines and Starship Troopers and military sci-fi and all that, Warhammer 40K has a lot of mechs in it, and some of them are even good. Up until they reach a certain size range, apparently, and it drops off precipitously. The one I find most odious is the Reaver Titan, but there are some really, really derpy-looking faces for the other Imperial Knights. The Warlord Titan is hulking but looks intimidating with its stooped shoulders laden down by city-ending weaponry. The Warhounds are ferocious and somewhat feral-looking. Even the more ridiculously huge ones are awe-inspiring by dint of sheer weaponry and immensity. And then there's that ugly duckling, the Reaver Titan. It's got this weird bucktooth face, this squished head, and frankly it looks like a half-transformed Decepticon left discarded on a toy chest. Almost all the Marine Dreadnoughts are winners, the Tau Crisis suits are visually engaging, even the Adeptus Mechanicus robots have a great design aesthetic, so what's the excuse for the Reaver Titan? But as bad as I think the Reaver looks, it's not as big of a mess as the Eldari Warwalker. It's always that damn open cockpit with these Western mech designs, I tell you. And don't get me started on actually building the fucking things, that's a goddamn nightmare. The Eldari version of the Imperial Guard Sentinel, I think the Sentinel is a much better mech, hands down. Or foot down, because neither of them have arms, but the point stands. And while I'm on the subject of miniature games featuring mecha, I'd be remiss not to bring up games like Cav and Battletech. Cav, which is short for Combat Assault Vehicle, is a bit less well-known mech game, but it has its share of absolutely banger designs, and the minis are cheap as chips. They're also substantially larger game pieces than Battletech has, and come apart for easier painting. However, for every absolute banger in the Cav line, there is a big brick with some guns strapped to it, which is kind of disappointing and one of the primary complaints I have about their designs. I get it, they're walking tanks, but don't be so damn literal about it. But if Cav has this as a minor quibble, Battletech has this in spades. For every Timberwolf and Atlas, there's some sort of slouched over, stubby arm piece of shit. They miss the mark in a very, very special way. Catalyst Games just quite hasn't gotten how to revamp some of these chonky clonkers. Now, most of the issues here are, again, the walking brick problem, or they look like somebody's napkin drawing of a mech getting a full workup. Damn the consequences. This is compounded by the art being from across several decades, and not all the designs getting updated visuals, so we get gorgeous reworks right next to Cletus the Assassin mech and its stupid nubby arms. Of course, the real winners here are the mechs that they lifted wholesale from Dougram and Macross, but, what you gonna do? And now we reach back through the mists of time to Robot Jox, to a mech that holds a special place in my heart for being both extremely impressive visually and also bloody goddamned awful. Yes, Achilles is a special, one-of-a-kind robot, but that hasn't saved it from a lot of very questionable design choices. There's one big thing about Western mecha in general, and it's that people designing the mechs are never satisfied because it works because we say it works. Neural inputs, levers and pulleys, full body motion detectors, all the above, all of the time that you put into talking about that takes away from the work as a whole, with the exception of Pacific Rim, because drift compatibility is fully integrated into that story. In this case, Achilles again has a big open cockpit with a giant motion capture system that seems to work in slow motion, and the interior has crippled at least one mech jockey because he fell on it badly and broke his spine. Add that to the same slouched over, low slung head, and it's just hard to really track what's going on with it. I guess easily discernible anatomy is kind of a sticking point for me now. But yeah, the mech seems underpowered and undergunned for what it's supposed to be doing, but at the same time, it looks pretty good in motion for a movie as old as it is, but it is definitely feeling that age. Now, a movie that has no excuses for what its mech design, if you can call it that, is the 27 remake of Power Rangers. Sadly enough, the film was decent, if a little all over the place, and the design elements that they included and decided on overall weren't unforgivably bad, but that god-awful Megazord design hit every possible fucking problem with it. None of the original design elements were present, the combiner aspect was barely considered or visible, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, but it looked like a goddamn Bayformer. The original Zyuranger Daijujin had really particular and recognizable armor and elements to it with a strong color scheme and iconic weaponry. This thing was a pile of gray goo that formed itself into a person-like shape. If you're going to go that hard with the gray goo sort of direction, why not spend a chunk of the battle trying to learn how to reform weaponry and bulk up the armor and then use that to bring it into an updated version of the original? But I guess that would have taken away from the Krispy Kreme screen time, huh? Ultimately, what screws up Western mecha design is the focus on the complete opposite things from the Japanese side. The designs are overly bulky, they have too many exposed moving parts, they spend too much time putting in as little color as possible, and focusing on control systems rather than how it works within the confines of the story. Even the most hard sci-fi anime remember to fully enclose their fucking pilots. Ultimately, the reason that Western mecha design has so many bumpy failures to it is because we know what quote-unquote military spec things should look like because it's on our screens all the time. Japan had a little bit more fanciful ideas of it and probably wanted to stay away from heavily militarized things because it didn't really feel good in the 70s and 80s to kind of have all that stuff in your face. They weren't bogged down by having the biggest military on the planet. So if we can shake that idea off, maybe Westerners will be able to come up with mecha designs that feel not cribbed from Japan, but not just some giant camouflage box either. But I hold out hope forever, perhaps to my own detriment, but who's to say? Anyway, as usual, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.